Chapter 9, Roman Civilization. Roman Culture. Main idea. In addition to their own developments in science and engineering, Roman artists and writers borrowed many ideas from the Greeks. The Romans admired and studied Greek statues, buildings, and ideas. They copied the Greeks in many ways. However, they changed what they borrowed to suit their own needs. In one important way, the Romans were very different from the Greeks. The Greeks loved to talk about ideas. To the Romans, ideas were only important if they could solve everyday problems. What was Roman art like? The Romans admired Greek art and architecture. They placed Greek-style statues in their homes and public buildings. Roman artists, however, carved statues that looked different from those of the Greeks. Greek statues were made to look perfect. People were shown young, healthy, and with beautiful bodies. Roman statues were more realistic and included wrinkles, warts, and other less attractive features. In building, the Romans also turned to the Greeks for ideas. They used Greek-style porches and rows of columns called colonnades, but they also added their own features, such as arches and domes. Roman builders were the first to make full use of the arch. Arches supported bridges, aqueducts, and buildings. Rows of arches were often built against one another to form a vault, or curved ceiling. Using this technique, the Romans were able to build domes from many rings of shaped stone. The Romans were the first people to invent and use concrete, a mixture of volcanic ash, lime, and water. When it dried, this mix was as hard as rock. Concrete made buildings sturdier and allowed them to be built taller. Rome's concrete buildings were so well built that many still stand today. One of the most famous is the Colosseum, completed about AD 80. It was a huge arena that could seat about 60,000 people. Another famous building is the Pantheon, a temple built to honor Rome's gods. The Pantheon's domed roof was the largest of its time. Roman literature. Roman authors based much of their writing on Greek works. For example, the Roman writer Virgil drew some of his ideas from Homer's Odyssey. Virgil's epic poem, the Aeneid, describes the adventures of the Trojan prince Aeneas and how he came to Italy. Virgil presents Aeneas as the ideal Roman, brave, self-controlled, and loyal to the gods. Rome's other famous writers also looked to the Greeks for inspiration. Using Greek models, the poet Horace wrote satires. These works poked fun at human weaknesses. Horace also composed odes, or poems that express strong emotions about life. The Roman writer Ovid wrote works that were based on the Greek myths. The poet Catullus also admired Greek writings. He wrote short poems about love, sadness, and envy. Like the Greeks, Rome's historians recorded the events of their civilization. One of Rome's most famous historians was Livy. He wrote his History of Rome about 10 BC. In this book, Livy describes Rome's rise to power. Livy greatly admired the deeds of the early Romans, and he believed that history had important moral lessons to teach people. Livy celebrated Rome's greatness, but the Roman historian Tacitus took a darker view. He believed that Rome's emperors had taken people's freedom. Tacitus also thought Romans were losing the values that made them strong. He accused them of wasting time on sports and other pleasures. Also, like the Greeks, the Romans enjoyed plays. Roman plays were often based on Greek tragedies and comedies. Playwrights such as the tragedy writer Seneca and the comedy writers Plautus and Terence wrote plays for religious festivals. Romans especially liked plays with humor. Roman authors influenced later writers in Europe and America, but the language of the Romans, Latin, had even a bigger impact on future generations. Latin became Europe's language for government, trade, and learning until about AD 1500. Latin became the basis of many modern European languages, such as Italian, French, and Spanish, and shaped many others. Many of the English words we use today come from Latin as well. Roman science and engineering. The Romans also learned from Greek science. A Greek doctor named Galen brought many medical ideas to Rome. For example, he emphasized the importance of anatomy, the study of body structure. To learn about inner organs, Galen cut open dead animals and recorded his findings. Doctors in the West studied Galen's books and drawings for more than 1,500 years. Another important scientist of the Roman Empire was Ptolemy. Ptolemy lived in Alexandria in Egypt. He studied the sky and carefully mapped over 1,000 different stars. He also studied the motion of planets and stars and created rules explaining their movements. Even though Ptolemy incorrectly placed Earth at the center of the universe, educated people in Europe accepted his ideas for centuries. While Roman scientists tried to understand how the world worked, Roman engineers built an astonishing system of roads and bridges to connect the empire. Have you ever heard the saying, all roads lead to Rome? Roman engineers built roads from Rome to every part of the empire. These roads were well built and made travel and trade more accessible. The Romans also used advanced engineering to supply their cities with fresh water. Engineers built aqueducts to bring water from the hills into the cities. Aqueducts were long troughs supported by rows of arches. They carried water over long distances. At one time, 11 great aqueducts fed Rome's homes, bathhouses, fountains, and public bathrooms. Roman cities also had sewers to remove waste. Reading check. How was the character Aeneas an ideal Roman?